the former cruiserweight champion of the world.
He's dangerous like that!
A Hollywood movie star.
You know, the last time I seen that, I was in a Hollywood movie.
And a mouth that simply doesn't have an off button. This is the story of the one and only, the Bomber,
Bellew's going for it!
Tony Bellew. Born Anthony Lewis Bellew on the 30th, Born Anthony Lewis Bellew on the 30th of November 1982 in the Toxteth area of Liverpool. Growing up on these tough streets, Tony learnt about violence and fighting at an early age, believe you me, make no mistake.
But make no mistake, believe you me, believe you me, and believe you me.
Yeah. Tony's father had a successful security firm and a keen interest in boxing. Around 10 years old, Bellew will begin to replicate his dad's shadow boxing and garnered interest himself. His dreams of becoming a boxer were there from the early days, but his main passion was football. He wanted to play for his beloved team, Everton FC. Fuck knows why. In his final year of school, Tony was excluded for an altercation with another student. This student hit a teacher and in true Bomber style, he broke the lad's jaw. He said bollocks to school and focused his attention on boxing training out of the Rotunda ABC boxing gym. Never a shy boy, he told everybody he would be a world champion, a boxing legend. They just laughed at him. But as we scroll through the history books at the greatest boxers of our time in their teenage years, we can just tell they are destined for greatness. Look at a ferocious 16-year-old Mike Tyson, a vicious 17-year-old Manny Pacquiao, a 12-year-old boxing genius in Muhammad Ali. It was obvious just from his school photo that Mr. Tony Bellew had it in him to reach the heights of boxing world champion greatness. I mean, just look at him. If that's not a world champion in the making, I bloody don't know what is. The Bomber had pursued kickboxing at a decent level in his early teenage years, but he took his boxing training seriously under the tutelage of Jimmy Albertina. Since the age of 15, he was working with his dad on the doors of nightclubs, which nurtured the already tough schoolboy into a hardened machine. He credits his dad for being a tough but loyal character with a switch that could turn him into somebody you wouldn't want to fight. Tony says he was born with the same switch that could be triggered at any minute. Personally, I don't know what he's talking about. I've never seen this side of him. The Scouser began competing in the early 2000s and quickly garnered a reputation for his punching power and big motor in mouth. Knocking out nearly every opponent he faced to win novice titles, he went on to win 3 ABA titles back-to-back before turning professional in 2007.
Just watch and enjoy.
Competing in the light heavyweight division and rocking some dodgy fucking outfits, Tony continued his Bomber style with a number of knockout wins under the promotion of Bricktop himself, Mr. Frank Warren.
Do you know what nemesis means?
Frank was matchmaking Tony well, but had a scare in his 14th fight against Bob Ajisafi when he got put on his arse. He surfaced to pull off a points win, our first introduction to Tony's incredible heart in the ring. Over the course of the years, Tony's relationship with Frank had occasionally been frosty and tensions were rising between the two. Frank was also on the blob at the time with the rise of Matchroom. He was feeling the pressure. It was a clash of Snatch versus The Only Way is Essex, and Frank was worried about getting completely fucking vajazzled.
He's a twat, isn't he? I mean, what do you want me to say?
Bellew had a small change in camp during 2 scrappy wins over Oval Mackenzie, and then the epic rivalry was born. The Bomber versus the Welshman. It's Nathan Cleverly from the Valleys, isn't it?
You nutter!
You nutter. I tell you what, he made Tony fume and tamping bloody raging, I tell you. Sorry. Carried away. A colossal battle of pride. A press conference we will never forget. The boxing world's nipples were fully erect for this war which totally delivered. Unlike the friggin' second one. Bellew felt it was his night, but the decision was given to Cleverly. The Bomber was heartbroken and the relationship with Warren was about to turn sour. A long court battle ensued and Tony feared for his boxing career. It wasn't anything new to Frank because he'd been to the magistrate's court so many times he gets invited to the fucking Christmas parties. So a new beginning was needed. The only way is Essex. Fast Car was ready to pick up the pieces for the Scouse Warrior.
Boxing fans, are you ready?
The court case was finalised and Bellew had a new lease of life. 2 strong wins to begin his matchroom career and a difficult draw with Chilemba that was revenged the second time around. It was off to Canada for the light heavyweight WBC title against the ferocious Adonis Stevenson. By this time the Bomber was finding difficulty in making the weight. Through severe cutting techniques including lengthy saunas, sweatsuit runs and Kerry Katona's weight loss DVD, he only just managed to make it in time.
Make the levels I went to make weight that night, I couldn't explain to you how bad it was.
Standing on the scales and looking like the friggin' machinist, Bellew was in a dark place physically and mentally and the fight turned out to be a step too far. His light heavyweight days were over. The cruiserweight class was calling. To quote the great philanthropist Gemma Collins, "I won't fight it anymore. I am the size that I am and that's that. But I'm still a strong independent woman." Tony Bellew was a strong independent woman. The Stevenson fight was also an awakening for another shift in camp. He made his way to home base to get himself a garden gnome. The legendary David Caldwell was now the Bombers' chief trainer and the improvements were clear to see. Emphatic wins over Brudov and Dos Santos paved the way for the rematch that Tony wanted. The former world champion Welshman, isn't it, was now signed to Matchroom and fans were screaming for the second part of the story. The return to the Echo Arena, the bad blood still lurking in the air, a pay-per-view spectacle that fans were frothy for. Sold by Edward as the fight of the century and based on the first fight, how could it not be anything but an all-out war?
The main event was a little disappointing, I felt.
Fuck me, it turned out to be toilet. But Bellew was victorious. The chapter was closed and behind the scenes things were looking a lot rosier for the Bomber.
And on that note, kiss me ass.
He had received a dream phone call for a starring role in the most legendary boxing movie franchise of all time. Sylvester Stallone, Michael B. Jordan, The Rocky Saga, Creed. Stallone asked the Nutty Scouse boxer to use his phenomenal acting skills to play the part of a Nutty Scouse boxer. The transformation was incredible. He was unrecognisable. Even Eddie got a little mention.
People like Silver Spoon over here. Jeez!
The movie was a success, but world title dreams were still firmly in Tony's mind.
You know, I'm not Rocky. I'm Tony Bellew. I'm Tony Bellew, the Scouser, the Mad Everton fan, who's going to lift that green belt.
Another free victory set him up for the fight of his life. The Cruiserweight World title, the stadium he dreamed of performing in since he was a boy, against the heavy-hitting brute force world champion Makabu. Down in the first round, the crowd on the edge of their seat. A left hook to send Makabu's lights out in the third round and Liverpool had a new world champion. The defining night of his life, a dream come true. It was incredible stuff. To be honest, as much as I love the Bellew story, I'm struggling to write any funny jokes for this point in his life. So let's move on to this fucking helmet. Only joking, David, love you really. The Bomber was straight back into the action. A beatdown win against BJ Flores and then the shit hit the fan. Bellew lunges for the haymaker. Angrier than my wife when I leave skids down the toilet. Tony calls for the fight saying he's been conning the public.
Bitch from Bermondsey, man up. Stop talking on your Instagram. Put your top back on and let's do it.
Hay loves a pound note, so the fight was on.
He had some stick for me knocking my last opponent down with a jab. I'm confident I'll knock him out with a jab. It's an easy night's work.
Prince Patel was back. David Hay was back. Returning from retirement with 2 emphatic wins over Mark Demori and the well-known Arnold Gersh. I can't even say the name, but basically a pair of binmen. Hay saw nothing more than a lethal quick knockout on Bellew and a man that was out of his league. Bomber saw it otherwise. A traditional Bellew press conference. 2 mouthy bastards going at it and then a punch up in the face-off. A Bellew recipe we all bloody adore. Tony and the Garden Gnome hit the gym hard and the Haymaker fucked off to a yacht. You could say that he never took the fight seriously, but even I had my doubts if the Bomber could pull it off. I'm a massive Bellew fan, but I really did think there was more chance of my Japsai speaking Jamaican than him getting the win. But sweet child of mine, was I wrong. The night had arrived, the O2 Arena, 20,000 strong. The talking was done, injury free. Hay planned to knock out Bellew and then Joshua and then destroy Matchroom. That was his destiny.
After I've taken out this guy, I'm going to come back and take out Joshua and end your business. Matchroom's going to be over.
A sporting finish to a sporting contest.
Fuck me, that quote aged well, didn't it? But the Bomber was victorious, written off by everybody, proving the doubters wrong, and told Apple and Pears to stick his celebration up his arse. An incredible victory for the Scouser.
Fat boy done good, didn't he?
The win was unfortunately cast with doubts because of the Haymaker's injury. The Bomber felt he needed to make it concrete.
I will oblige him. Salt and pepper's on my side of the table this time.
Hay was in desperate need of the rematch, and the money, obviously. The bout was scheduled for December the 17th, but the unfortunate news emerged of another Hay injury, so the fight was postponed.
Hay has pulled out of his much anticipated rematch with Tony Bellew after suffering a freak accident in training.
Christ, Hay loved an injury, didn't he? He must have had a body made out of fucking crisps. The bout was rescheduled for the 5th of May. Hay employed his own Garden Gnome this time and borrowed Louis Spence's shoes. A more tamed build-up until Bellew used his acting skills to once again become a mean bastard. Oscar-winning stuff. Return to the O2 Arena. 19,999 Scousers and Joe Fournier at the back cheering on David. Yay, go David. The superstar showed the world that it was no fluke. Hay's head was used like a bloody pinata. The referee forced to stop the bout and the Bomber was crowned the king.
I'm very grateful for the victory. I'm happy David's okay. I'm not here today, people. This is a business, a cold-blooded business. And I'm ruthless when I get in a boxing ring.
David Hay went on to knock out Anthony Joshua, forcing Matchroom to file for bankruptcy. Oh no, wait, sorry, that didn't happen. David Hay retired and Bellew walked off into the sunset. But the last temptation was something he just couldn't resist. An undisputed fight against the formidable and nutty as a fruitcake Alexander Usyk. The quest for greatness was something he would only regret if he'd passed it by. The champion rolled the dice.
I lost to the best fighter I've ever seen, I've ever faced. I've had a fantastic... I've won. I sit here as a loser tonight and I feel heartbroken and fucked. But, mate, I've won in life.
The Bomber lost the fight, but he gave it a bloody good go. His time was up, but the memories he gave us will live on forever. Tony got home safe to his wife and kids. The Scouse warrior hung up the gloves. He wanted to now lead the quiet life, to not be disturbed, to move away from the bright lights. Tony then went on to star in Britain's most popular reality TV show SAS, joined the panel of League of Their Own, released a book and presents boxing on Global Sports Channel DAZN. I see more of this f***er than my missus, which ain't a bad thing to be fair. Tony Bellew, my hero. I bloody love this man. They don't make 'em like him anymore. Big up the Bellew.
Thank you very much for having me, it's a pleasure.
A proper legend. Bosh.